This is a special Women CEO Forum. You heard from the men yesterday, three of them yesterday, and today we have four incredible achievers. Yes. So before we begin with the topic of this Women CEO Forum, I want you to get to know them. Who are these women? I always say, nobody's born a CEO. Who are you, right? So I'm going to start with Marina Specht. She is the CEO for McCann for all of Europe. And she's an advertising, digital, creative marketer for 25 years. Marina, what made you go into that line of business? Where did you begin? Was that something that you thought about as a career when you were young? What did you want to do when you were young, first?
I wanted to find truth and speak out. I am a journalist by training. And I started my own company at age 27, which I subsequently, it became a leading branded content company in Europe, and I sold that to McCann in 2000, and since developed that career. And it's funny that starting out in the search of truth and speaking out, I ended up in a company whose tagline and mantra for the last 150 years has been truth well told.
Truth well told. What did you study when you were in school? Journalism?
Yes.
And was that something that you wanted to do all your life? I mean, not all your life, from the very, very beginning. What led you to that major?
I always loved asking questions more than giving answers, but also I am...
Did you drive your parents crazy?
I'm the daughter of a very successful entrepreneur in a family of 5 generations of German entrepreneurs, and that DNA, as DNA always strikes back, and DNA did strike back. And so not surprisingly, I became a businesswoman, and as I said, I started my own business very early, and enjoyed very much building a large business across Europe, but never lost that curiosity, you know, in search of truth. And the other important part, and I guess that's why I have enjoyed being a CEO for 26 years, is I love people. And you really have to like people to be a successful CEO, I believe.
Wonderful, thank you. Next we have Julia Schlenz. She is president of Dow for Europe, Middle East, Africa, India, Switzerland. I mean, and this happened in the course of the year when we got to know each other. So that is a large portfolio. How do you manage such a large number of countries? Are you on the road all the time?
Yes, I'm traveling a lot, but I have a wonderful team. That's the secret. Or maybe not the secret, because they're very present.
Yes, but it still requires you knowing a lot about each of the operations in more countries than many CEOs have to do.
Absolutely. And it's actually, how can I say, especially in times like today, where we're also facing economic challenges, it's really interesting to see the different dynamics. When you think about Europe, you think about India, a growth region, you think about Africa, you also have very different cultures, but at the same time, we're all united in the values, actually, that we live for. So that's really nice to see. Yeah.
When you were young, did you want to be in business from the very beginning?
I think I had zero idea where I wanted to be honest. But
What did you study in school in the beginning?
I studied actually economic psychology, communication sciences, and marketing. So I come from the business side. I had no exposure to engineering or chemicals, which we see a lot in our industry. But I was always driven by, I call it my 4 C's, which was curiosity, so there seems to be a pattern. It was collaboration, it was communication, and I would say also care for others. So through this, I always wanted to be somewhere where you could impact something directly. And I found industry because you're putting something in at the beginning and something comes out in the end that's useful for humankind and that brings the world forward. And I think very often we have forgotten how things are made, and I was always curious about that.
Was there a parent that was influential, who was influential in your moving in that direction? And also, how many kids were there in the family?
We were two daughters, and both parents were influential. So my father always told us, you can do everything. So I was lucky to have a father who really empowered their girls, but who also brought us a lot of discipline, which is also important if you want to be successful. And then I had a mother, and I was thinking of her last night when we were standing here and talking about, especially when I saw what Monica has achieved, right? I thought, what a shame my mother can't be here. She would have loved it. She's one of these people always speaking up when she has a question, never concerned to seem dumb because she has a question, but rather filling her knowledge gaps. And so she helped me to learn to speak up and to be curious.
Wonderful. Thanks to Mom. And you followed an entrepreneurial father, right?
Yes, an entrepreneurial father who taught me a lot of things. I was born on a sailing boat, Irene, and I sailed 25...
That was an accident?
No. No.
So your mom went
were
on
sailors,
board,
yes.
and knowing she might give birth, on that boat?
That's right. And my parents were, very engaged sailors. And so I was lucky to sail 15, 20,000 miles with my family, with my parents under the age of 20. And pretty much everything you need to know about leadership and business, I learned as a very young girl sailing.
Okay. That's new training I hadn't heard about.
You hadn't heard about that one.
Born on the boat?
That's why my name is Marina, by the way.
That makes sense. Thank you. Interesting parents. No, I keep talking about parents because that's where we came from, right? It matters who raises us, how they raise us, because we carry that forward whether we think we're not or are. So Bettina Orlopp is CEO, one of the largest banks in Germany, Commerzbank. And I had heard so much about her, they said, you have to meet Bettina. She is really a very different kind of CEO. In what way do you think they thought of you as a different CEO?
Well, first of all, I'm the first female CEO of a large German bank. That probably makes a difference. And the rest you probably have to ask. But I try to stay authentic, so people would say that I have not changed a lot over the decades. So
they did say that.
Yeah.
Authentic, accessible, not queenie. And we know what that means. I wanted to ask you about your upbringing. Was finance something in your bloodstream, or that sort of came later?
No, it was pretty much in there. I followed also a little bit, seems to be the story here, the path of my father, actually. So I joined McKinsey. I was second generation, or the second generation partner was McKinsey worldwide.
Really?
Because my father was also a McKinsey partner. And so I learned a lot about business life when I was small. I studied finance. I did a PhD in finance. I nearly spent all my career in banking. So it was basically a very automatic thing to end up in a bank. Probably not leading it. That is not something you plan, but at least ending in one.
Do you have children?
Yes, I have two, 21 and nearly 20, a boy and a girl.
And your career grew as they grew, right? So what was helpful to you in terms of balancing the two?
My husband always picked the right spouse, I would say. Very important for a career. So we really did it together. Then I have spent lots of money into childcare, support, etc. The kids themselves, so they accepted, they are now also studying business. So apparently, history goes on.
Well, you're one of a number of women during this summit who has said, find the right partner if you're going to have a successful career. And clearly you found one. Were you the eldest in the family?
No, I have an elder brother.
Ah, okay. Thank you so much. Bettina Orlopp. Now, I hope I don't butcher this. This is Piyajit Ruckariyapong.
Yes.
Did I do that?
Yeah, you do it correctly.
Thank you, thank you. She is CEO of a publicly listed company called Sappe in Thailand, and it exports drinks, other beverages all over to 100 countries. She was named one of Forbes Asia's Power Business Women of 2023, and she was also named Young Rising Star CEO from the Stock Exchange of Thailand. Yeah. It's a family-owned business, or began as one?
Yeah, it's a family-owned business, yes. But I didn't start with the families.
Okay, well, tell us a little bit.
Well, I started my career in banking. My first bank is actually Deutsche Bank. And actually, you know, my first job was a secretary. Because at that time when I graduated, it was a crisis in Thailand, which they call Tom Yam Kung. It's the Asian crisis. So it's very hard to find a job. So I got landed in Deutsche Bank, but then later on, you know, my career started from secretary until become a director in investment banking.
Was that Barclays?
The last post is at BNP Paribas, and I joined Barclays for 6 years, yeah, as an investment banker as well, yeah.
So the same questions, a little bit about your family, because clearly they're very, very important in terms of the company. Tell us a little bit about the family.
Actually, we come from a very humble background. My family is a second Chinese immigrant generation, born in Thailand. We start off with the snack business. You know, at that time, you know, we just start cooking our product in the kitchen and then selling it out throughout Thailand. Then when the second generation came in, I actually, you know, one of the 4 children. I'm the only daughter. So, you know, I've been surrounded by all the men, all the boys. So, you know, I'm not very ladylike. But since the second, yeah.
How many in the family?
4 of us. So
Where are you in the 4?
I'm the second.
And the rest are all boys?
The rest are all boys, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good upbringing.
Yeah, we need to be tough. I'll fight with them all the time, so.
Still?
Sometime. We're living in harmonize.
So if there was an eldest brother, how did you end up leading the company?
Well, when the second generation came in, my elder brother was the CEO of the company. I got called back from my parents to, because at that time we have a project to bring our company into the public listed, because they saw that I have an investment banking background. So they're asking me back, and then a year later, after I joined, we successfully listed our company into the Stock Exchange of Thailand. After a year of listing, then my elder brother decided that, he have enough. Then my dad asking me to step up as a CEO of the company from then, yes.
Well, thanks to Dad for the confident. No, seriously, there were 2 other brothers, right? So in an Asian family, that is a stamp of approval. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, the theme for this CEO forum is, should a company take a public position on any social or cultural issue? And this theme came about because of all the incredible challenges that all CEOs, whether male or female, are facing nowadays. You've got geopolitical crises everywhere that impact on supply chains. There are now cultural bans in some countries that are spilling over because, as I mentioned the other day, there is a rightward trend, more conservative trend, that tends to push back on some rights that we have taken for granted. There is climate change, the continued impact on workers, on your business, supply chains, clients, that you have to deal with as a company. And so this issue, should a company take a position? What does that cost if they do? A long time ago in the US, companies turned to green policies even before any government laws. The private sector was actually far more far-seeing, and they influenced large companies like GE started that. And then they required companies in their supply chain to also have green policies, and it had a spillover effect. When there were, for instance, and I'm going to take my country as an example, when there were repressive practices against women, Me Too era, a lot of companies would take out ads in major newspapers declaring their support for women in some way, shape, or form. The same thing for any violent actions against minorities. One of the ones I want to share with you, when there were rules in some southern states emerging that would have prevented certain minorities from voting, 2 CEOs, the CEO of Merck and the large pharmaceutical company, and the CEO of American Express, asked their colleagues to sign on, and 100 CEOs ended up signing on, that saying that if you curb the right of one person from voting, that it is a challenge to democracy. And I was truly impressed with the list of companies that took that position, out in the open. And I think that is an example when I say to you, there are companies that want to show what their public position is, and it does take a risk. So I'm going to begin with you, Marina. You very open journalistic background, investigative person born on a boat. And the openness that actually translates into. What do you think about that? Should a CEO take a public position? You deal with a lot of companies, a lot of other CEOs, in trying to create a strategy for them.
I have been lucky to work the last 25 years with many of the world's iconic brands and companies, and I have advised and discussed with many CEOs in Europe and in the US and in Asia on this topic. I have, in my entire career, met and seen actually very few companies that have consistently taken public positions on social, political issues. And yet, I believe that if you can do it right, because the way to do it is to do it right, it is one of the most powerful things you can do for your company. So, my answer, Irene, is that yes, you should, but only if you do it right. And what does that mean? That means that your position that you take needs to be rooted in your values of your company and your purpose, and not be tactical or opportunistic due to an opportunistic environment opportunity that could be favorable for you commercially to do that.
Give an example.
It means that if you are going to speak out, for example, about racial inequality, which in America has been, for example, a very big topic of the last 2 decades, then you cannot just speak out about that. Anything you speak out about has to be rooted in your story doing. Because credibility towards your stakeholders as a CEO, whether it's your employees, your customers, your consumers, the media, everybody, is rooted in what you do, not in what you say. And therefore, then it has to be part of your purpose, and you have to have programs, and you have to invest consistently to contribute to that issue, not just talk about it. Sustainability is another very good example. If you are a openly ESG-prone company and dedicated to this, you have to have this as part of your CSR and as part of your purpose and as part of your programs, and you have to actively invest in this and stand behind it. And all your stakeholders have to see that you are consistently invested, and I repeat, in the story doing more than in the storytelling. These are difficult times for storytelling, but we today, by the way, see in all our clients, we see different kinds of attitudes companies are taking. Some are what we call doing complete green hushing, like from green, washing to green hushing. Others are continuing with their programs and haven't canceled their programs, but they're lowering the voice, lowering the speak. And others are just marching ahead and talking about it and saying it, particularly European companies, obviously, that are backed up by European legislation, even when they operate in the United States.
Thank you. And at Dow, I'm sure ESG policies are very much in the forefront. Sustainability and all that was something that was there to be considered even before these times. So,
yeah, Dow is a company and all its employees very deeply rooted in our values, and that already started actually 128 years ago with our founder, Herbert Henry Dow, who already was all up for integrity and respect for people and impacting the community in a positive way. And that actually is there since these 128 years. And our purpose now to really make sure that we have integrity, that we have respect for people, and that we protect the planet. And you can also see it in our ambition, actually, where we want to be the most customer-centric, the most inclusive, the most innovative, and the most sustainable material science company in the world. So that's guiding us, that's our North Star. But then we're not only saying this, and that's the important part, you need to walk the talk and you need to put your money where your mouth is, right? Otherwise, I think you're creating more risk than you're creating benefit. Now, I'd say you still should not forget that your purpose is there to create sustainable financial results and be successful as a company. So in my mind, you should take a stance not for the purpose of taking a stance, but where actually a topic intersects with what you do, with your business operations, with your stakeholders, with your people. And that's the moment then where there's a value and an importance to speak up and to act on issues.
Was there a moment when that happened to Dow in any of the entities you've had to lead before?
No, I mean, you see it all the time. It is a constant theme. So when you think about, and I think you mentioned racial inequality, that is a big topic, but it's not only signing declarations, it's also activity, supporting the Black Congressional Caucus, for example, or supporting a lot of STEM activities with Black historical colleges, for example, but also STEM here in Europe, where we're collaborating with schools and universities. It's when you think about protecting the planet, the work we do on circularity and recycling. And it's all the wonderful ERG, employee resource groups we have who engage on topics from veterans to disability to LGBTQ+, and of course, as we're here today, to empowering and developing women.
When she says ERGs, these are employee resource groups that are in companies, you know, some for women, some for youth, whatever, different groupings, and that's how you hear from employees how they can impact on what the company's doing. And what about you, Bettina? What are your thoughts? Banking industry, my goodness, open to all kinds.
Well, banking industry is in the middle of everything, right? One should not forget, and one should be also aware of the responsibility we have as a bank, because we are on the one side, we are serving nearly all private clients of all groups, all backgrounds, and then on the other side, we are also financing the economy. We are here in Germany, one of the leading banks financing the Mittelstand, the medium-sized corporates, and you need to have clear values, clear policies, and knowing what you want to do and what you do not want to do as a bank. And I mean, we have a history of 155 years, so it's a long history. And you can read about our public position already when you open up our page, because you see where we take positions, where we publicly, be it on sustainability, be it on defense, be it on energy, financing, many different things. And I think it's important. And it's what Marina said, it needs to become natural, and it should be also nothing short-term, but long-term. So you can't also change direction, because otherwise you will not make sure that the organization understands it. So you have to embed it in your values, in your beliefs, and that's what we do. We do it on diversity. We have decades of diversity programs, and that helps us, because in the current situation, we do not have to decide to do anything else, because it's a very natural part of us, of our bank, and that makes a big difference. And this is also why we do state that also publicly. If you now go on Commerzbank.com, you will see that we have our logo in the moment in the rainbow colors, because it's Pride Month. And there has been no debate of not doing that.
I am so glad to hear that. Yeah.
But it also has to do with the fact that we are doing it slowly. We are inclusive. We are aware of the fact that we have 42,000 employees. We have 10 million private clients. So we need to make sure that we have our values, but that we do not exclude anyone. So we need to be very inclusive. And I think that is also very important when thinking about all the things. So, for example, when we now had election in Germany, we were aside with many other German corporates, so we did also sign a declaration for democracy, for freedom, we were asking people to vote. We do things like that. However, what we do not do is taking a stance for a certain party or something
No,
like that.
of course not.
But it's important to differentiate that. Specifically, when you're a very large publicly listed company, it's probably different. When you're a family-owned company, you can even take a position if you want. But that's how we do that, and it works. I think it works perfect, and it's very natural, and it helps us in the moment, because we are in less stress than others to think about what to do with our programs.
The company's walking the talk is what you're saying. The male CEOs yesterday talked about how do you keep trust? All the websites in most companies will say they're inclusive, we're fair, we are, sustainably conscious. They will all say that. But as Marina said, there are some who have pulled back and become more silent. So it's not a question of those principles and that mission not being there from the beginning, especially when you are, a legacy company that's been there a long time. But there has been a pullback. It's a reality. And I'm so glad for the public commitment, that the bank has made through you, because
Banking
you are
is-
the current, leader of the bank, and that makes a difference.
And banking is all about trust, so we are an expert in that. A bank without trust cannot exist. So I think we are very well aware of the fact on how you have to preserve that, how you have to earn that, and how you have to prove that day by day. Otherwise, a bank, a financial institution, is in deep trouble, I can tell you.
I can just imagine. And Piyajit, what is your take on this whole discussion? How does it impact where you are at all?
Oh, I think taking a public stand is very important to the company. For us as a Sappe, we think that doing a public stand is representing, what is our value, what we're standing for in a society or in an organization. For us, we actually, we do this stand based on our 3 values that we have in our organization. One is the innovation. Second is empowering. Third is diversity, equality, and inclusivity. What we do on that 3 values, one is the innovation. We are one of the leading non-alcoholic beverage in Thailand. We believe that through innovation, we can empower a lot of things. The first product that we launch out in the market is we create a new categories of beverage called snack drinks. A lot of people here will probably don't know what snack drink is. It's a drink that you need to chew. So when you drink it, you have some little pieces that you need to chew while you're drinking. So it's create a different sensation for the consumer. The second product that we launched out, which we launched it 20 years ago, is a functional drink for women, which under the brand Sappe Beauty Drink. The thinking behind this is to empower all the women. We're saying that all the women are the caretakers. We're always taking care of everyone. We want them to come back and think of themselves. How would they be able to care for themselves better, for us to nurture others in the better ways? And last year, we just launched out a new campaign of self-love. The thinking behind this campaign is that we don't have to be validated by anyone in the world. We should not wait for anyone to love us. We should start loving ourselves first. And this is all the communication that we're giving out to all the consumers in Thailand, saying that, once you coming back to take care of yourself, you empower yourself, you build your self-confidence, then your confidence will empower back into the society. It will create a lot more opportunity for you and for others to be able to facing all the challenges. And on the diversity and inclusivity, believe it or not, in Sappe, 53% of our employees are women.
Yay.
Yes. And on top of that, among our top management, 60% of us are women as well.
60?
60%, yes. We are saying that, we are not judge people by their gender. We are evaluating people by their performance, their kindness. So, everybody can shine out of their, their responsibility, their success in their career, rather than, their gender. So this is the belief that we are carry on, and we believe that, all the small initiative of the company can make the difference to the society.
Wonderful. Many of you probably don't know. Yes, please. In Thailand, 40% of CEOs are women. Okay? And they run big things. So, Piyajit being one of them. Wonderful to know that it's a female-led company. We had a top 10 list of best performing companies that I discussed yesterday in terms of appointments of women to boards, and the top 10 companies all were female-dominated boards, okay? Major brands, female-dominated boards. Now, everyone from Christine Lagarde last night to the Vice Chancellor, Kleinbeil, and just about everybody has talked about the backlash that we're all operating under, which is the reality, the political reality in which all of us have to continue the push for gender equality in the workplace. Now, as Marina said, some companies have pulled back. There are companies who erased their public commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion in response to my country's my country's current administration ban on discussing diversity, equity, and inclusion. You're not allowed to use the word woman, only male or female. All those words, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and you're not supposed to say sustainability. This is a reality, okay? And I'll give you two companies as an example. The shareholders of Apple and Costco voted to want the company to state its recommitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, which I thought was amazing model. So the question is, who should make this decision? Is it shareholders, senior management, the CEO, in terms of taking a position on a critical issue like this that impacts on half of the population of every country, whether it's Germany or the United States? Should it be shareholders, should it be management, or should just, because in other instances in the US, it's been a management decision to pull back, to get rid of their vice presidents for diversity, their vice president for sustainability. So, Marina, I start with you.
I believe it's first and foremost a CEO decision, and you have to stand for it, and it has to be backed up by the board, obviously. But I think it's a good practice to co-create the content together with your internal stakeholders about what you're going to do. And I'm going to give an example.
Yeah, please.
Whether, when there is a big public issue, whether you speak out and whether you fundamentally back that up, whether you do what Mark Benioff from Salesforce is doing, which is publicly standing up for LGBTQ, and Salesforce is a big American company. And I love what he's doing and how he's, still standing up there and putting all the voice and the investment and everything behind it. This, you have to, as a CEO, embody that. There is no, that's why you are the CEO, come on, right? You just have to be brave and you have to decide what you're gonna do. But I'll give you an example. We have a program at McCann called A Day for Meaning. Twice a year, we stop the company for an entire day. We are 24,000 people around the world, and we dedicate all our resources on that day around the world to not work for clients, but to create programs, ideas, and initiatives to help solve for societal problems. And so, you know, you can actually decide what your focus and your investment is going to be with the ideas that your people come up with. And I think that's a very good way of conveying those values and that decision to the people who work with you. Because don't forget that the people who work with you, each of them is also a spokesperson. Each of them is also a representative of who you are as a company. Each of them is someone in social media. Each of them is on Glassdoor. Each of them is speaking to other young people, and you want to attract talent, right?
Right.
So you have to involve them, I believe, in crafting those programs, and that's the best way to get them to believe what you want to believe. But I am a person who believes that as a CEO, you also can't shy away from the decision, and you have to stand up for that.
Well, I am delighted. I was also delighted to see the Salesforce CEO come out publicly to restate what they already were doing supporting LGBTQ community, because in my country, that community has been targeted, specifically through transgender people, which I think is a dog whistle for the entire LGBTQ community. And so I was delighted to see that. It was also good that the Marriott CEO also publicly stated their commitment, since we're in a Marriott. So for every CEO who comes out and says, you know, we're not going to change, that's where we are. It's the difference between a website and a CEO saying it. Now, everybody here has said it's your actions that really matter, whether it's your employees or the programs that you support, you know, or the women, how many of them are in your leadership. But right now, because it is a period of backlash, what is said publicly does matter. Julia.
No, absolutely. And as I said earlier, you know, if it's about your values, if it hasn't just been a trend for you or a marketing gag, you know, then that's what you continue to stay committed to. It's your values, and any action statement you make is a natural extension of that, right? We celebrate Pride Month because we want that everybody in our company feels that they belong and that it is a company for all. So that's a natural, logical consequence that then you celebrate that month, right? So I think it's even more important these days. If you look at the Edelman Trust Barometer, for example, you can actually see that companies now are seen as the major source of trust, you know? It's actually interesting, yeah, if you think about that. And so it's very, very important that we stay true to the values long term.
Thank you for bringing that up. Bettina.
Yeah, I mean, back also to your question, I mean, what is our obligation as CEO, as teams, is creating value, I think, creating value for all our stakeholders, meaning it's the shareholders, but also the customers and the employees. Because at the very end, I think we are well aware that most companies, at least a service organization like a bank, can only organize if the whole three stakeholder groups are in balance. So we need the shareholders to provide the capital, otherwise we can't do what we do. We need the customers, because otherwise we will not have a business model, very simply speaking. And we need to have very committed and dedicated staff and talented staff to make sure that the whole business model is working. And we have we have the conviction that you can only create that if you have diverse teams, because they create value. and that is diversity with respect to background, with respect to international backgrounds, with respect to age, but also with respect to gender. And we also see that one of the key points to attract talents is to stick firm on that, to be clear and to stay authentic. We also, and I have to say that we are always compliant to regulatory frameworks, and we have to be in all the countries. It is something, it's an obligation which we all have, but within this boundary you can do a lot, and you should do a lot, and stick to your values. And I think it's also important for the culture, because we experience in the moment a rather difficult phase in the bank because of some things. But we have a very strong culture. We have this proud to be yellow. My heart beats yellow. That's for Commerzbank, and it's so important. And I think one point why we have that is that we have a culture which is not changing, which is a fighting culture, and which is a supporting culture, and which is a one-team culture, and that's all about inclusion. That you make sure that you include all people. We have 120 nationalities in our bank. We need to make sure that we are inclusive. We have 50% females in the workforce. We need to be inclusive. We are not as good as you are with respect to leadership, but at least we have 38% female in leadership, which is already the right step. And we will continue this effort, and I agree. I mean, it's with diversity programs, I always said that when I was even a consultant with McKinsey doing Women Matter studies, I always said if the CEO is not convinced, you will never get it done. So it's a CEO who stands out, who needs to support programs like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think for us as a Sappe, we believe that the key initiative will only be impactful if there's an engagement in all our stakeholders. So gathering feedback and 360-degree on their communication is very important to us. We engage all our stakeholders into the input of our initiative. For example, our shareholders. We normally have annual shareholder meeting every year. On top of that, we have online meeting with our investor every quarter. So they are free to give some initiative to us. Second, consumer is very important. For us, we also trying to be engaged with consumer. We're trying to get the initiative, what is value to them through the survey as well as social listening. So we actually do a lot of social listening online to see, what our consumer value at this moment, what is dear to their heart, what initiative that the company or the brand should stand up for. That's also very important. Another important part is our employees. The employees in our organization is a very flat organization, and we encourage all our employees to have free speech with respect. So I always say to my employee that my door is always open, so they can just come in and be free to suggest or giving any initiative into the company. Then as a top management, we need to consolidate all those initiatives and see what is the most impactful and what is the most important thing for our company to go forward and execute that initiative throughout the year. So that's the process that we do in Sappe.
Do they really walk in just to your office? No, because it's a very respectful culture.
I mean, we're very junior staff, probably not. But I think middle management or, a little bit lower than middle management, they would be very open to talk to me. And we actually have a lot of activity for us, between the top management and the junior staff to mingle. So I think for us as an organization, we are very flat and lean. Yeah.
Okay, terrific. There was a McKinsey study that showed that Gen Zers and millennials are more interested in companies excuse me, that align with their values. And since there is this problem of retention when it comes to young people, you know, one bad evaluation, they don't realize that doesn't mean you're awful overall, they leave, right? So how do we keep the young people, the ones who are very interested, say in your company, but then disagree with a position? Because there have been walkouts, the law firms that have been targeted by President Trump for not giving them business, right? Because one of the lawyers litigated against him. Some lawyers walked out and went to another company, a law firm, that didn't do that, that didn't say, okay, we'll do it. So there are ways, the Apple, you know, shareholders who decided, no, you're going to say exactly what we always thought. How do we keep the millennials and Gen Zers who care about values? You strategize with companies?
Well, you keep them by having values, first of all. How about that?
That are visible.
How about that? And then living by them. Not having them written on some website or somewhere, but living by them. And living by them means that key people in the company at all levels that have visibility have to live day by day and take decisions that are coherent with these values, and people have to see it. Again, story doing over storytelling. It is what it is, you know. Gen
Walking
Z,
the talk.
Yeah, walking the talk. And Gen Z, more than any other generation, you know, acts like that. And also, again, the importance of Gen Z is that all of them are a medium. All of them share on social all of the content,
Like
which
that.
is, you know, they have a power to convince other peers to join your company that, you know, is not to be neglected, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, because they will not only talk about what you do, but also what you don't do, right? And I think with the millennials or younger, we don't get easily away if we don't walk our talk. We also see that we have more dialogue and more debates to bring them also along. Why are we doing what we do? And why does it matter for them where they are? And then I think we also have an important opportunity, but also responsibility. With social media, you have a lot of opinion bubbles, right? Where you more and more see that people evolve around one single opinion. And in your workplace, you actually don't really get to choose who's next to you, right? You get together with a set of very different, diverse people with diverse opinions. But as we saw, corporations are also a place of trust. That's the opportunity for us also to foster dialogue. Typically also in corporations, dialogue is more respectful, especially if you have a culture like we have, or like you just said, it's all about dealing respectfully with one another. We're a material science company. A lot is about facts, right? So we actually have a very, very good opportunity to help people get out of opinionated bubbles and exchange, listen to each other with respect, and maybe overcome the one or the other bias. And I guess that's not only important for millennials, but it's a huge opportunity we should not let go.
Well, a lot has been said. I mean, staying authentic, sticking to your values, executing and listening to the people, and over-communicate. I think over-communication is always important. You can't communicate too little. You can, you always, because it's too much, because you can only communicate too little. And that's specifically true for the younger ones who want to be involved. They want to be activated, they want to be part of it. And I think the best thing is to make them part of the networks, to make them part of the initiatives, and
Engagement.
to give them engagement, to give them a meaning, and then you can also keep them. But it's not only, I mean, I have the feeling it's not only important for the young talents. I feel that there is a need for that across the generations, to say it like that. And it's an important factor for many people, at least in our company.
For any company, how do you engage the boomers with the Gen Zers and the millennials?
Well, a lot about, first of all, by working together. They're all together in a team, and that brings us back to the question on what's the best way on working together today. We have probably one of the most flexible mobile working policies you can think of, because the teams can decide. We only want them at least to have one team day, but and the rest they can decide. But we also say that there is the target to stay 2 to 3 days in the office, to form the culture, to make sure people meet, that young people are trained by senior ones, and it's working out pretty nicely, but it's fully flexible, so it's a decision by the different teams. But this working together, I think, is an important one. Trainings are another one. Also, I mean, having it written down so people can read it, making trainings on it is important. We have a code of conduct, as probably everybody else, Yellow Compass, and you need to have that to make sure that they find that and that they see it. And we also reiterate that in town halls, in get-togethers, and but just actions. We also want to have a thank you culture. So we do a lot of thank yous, gatherings and things like that to value what people do. We have the rule that when we see someone did something well in the board, someone is calling up this person. It's not money or something. It's just a call by the CEO or by someone else saying, "Oh, I heard you did a great job. Thank you very much for that." That is something about values.
I like the term of thank you culture. I think that says a lot by itself.
Yeah. In Sappe, our office, we don't call office. We call playground. For everybody to come and play together instead of working together. I think the first objective I think first thing first for us is, we need to have a very clear goal and value to recruit the right people into the company, especially millennial and Gen Z. Believe it or not, in Sappe, 20% of our employees are Gen Z.
I believe it.
So, I'm among the oldest in the organization. Sad to say, but then, yeah, it's a fact. Our average age in the company is around 35.
Wow.
Yeah, so yeah, we were all pretty young generation company because we want to be innovative, we want to be creative. And what we learned from this Gen Z and millennial is that, all this Gen Z and millennial, they live with purpose. Why do they here with the organization? What is there for them to be here? What would they do with us? And they don't trust easily. They're always challenging you. So as a leader of the organization, you really need to lead by example. You really need to walk the talk, do what you committed. Action is really count. So this is the thing that is very important to Gen Z. The things that I think with this couple of years that we emphasize on the importance of it is the mental health as well. In this era, people have a lot of stress, especially us as well as Gen Z. So we incorporate a lot of activities around it.
On well-being.
Yeah, on mental well-being. We have a lot of activity for them to be with themselves, to be mindful for themselves. We carve out some of the office hours for them to be able to participate in, let's say, art class that we set up. We will have this kind of activity on a monthly basis for them to, being with themselves, have some spare time out of works, for them to enjoy themselves a little bit, be less stressed. I think with all this activity incorporate into the organization, that make them excited to stay with the company. And this year, we hire a HR consultant to do a competency gap of our employees. What we learned from them was that through that survey, all the employee doesn't only all the employee doesn't look for the highest pay. What they're looking for is the fair. The word fair is the word fair. Whether they are fair to be compensated this way, are they fair to be treated this way? So I think this is a very important word for us to take into the consideration as well. What is fair to all this Gen Z? Or what is fair to all our employees? So I think with all this, I think Gen Z is a generation that we need to nurture and we need to thrive them, because what we learn is that they have a lot of energy. Once you got their engagement, you actually get a lot out of them. So, the company is doing our best to maintain and get Gen Z excited.
Okay. Well, we're going to hear from Gen Zers and millennials. Please give these incredible women a big hand. Thank you. Thank you. That was wonderful.